How much time do you think you spend with a laptop just below your nipples in your life?
I don't know, quite a bit. Not enough to like where I don't want to do more computers after work.
Right.
You know?
Manufacturing car parts is a very different animal. We're car guys, so if we need a bracket, we make a bracket. We whack it out on our vise, or we weld something together, and it works the way we hope it will for our own car. But in the manufacturing world, and when you're creating a product like I am with this Subaru EZ30R swap kit for vintage Porsches, manufacturing can come with a lot of caveats, most of which are time related. When I embarked on this project 2.5, 3 years ago, I didn't have anywhere near the computer-aided design, not cardboard-aided design, skills that I do now. But even with the basic skills I have now, I'm not an engineer. I'm just a dude in a garage making parts like 99.9% of you guys. But when you need to make something, in this case, that works from 1966 through 1989 911s, people that have ducktails and turbo tails and regular tails, people that might have different heights and modifications done to their engine compartment, there's a lot of factors that go into it. What you see here is the first prototype of a radiator that I designed completely myself. I was in Fusion 360 and I designed it. I took a bunch of photos of it, and then when I went to SEMA last November, I went around to all the different manufacturers in China and said, can you make this? Well, I ended up pairing with one that's been unbelievably great to work with. And what you're seeing behind me is the first prototype of that particular radiator. Now, I've already made some tweaks. Unfortunately, because it's manufacturing, those tweaks take a while, on the tune of 4 months. So I gave them some feedback on this one, and their engineers got to drawing it up. I had to approve the drawing, and now assuming that they have the time, they're gonna try to fast track it, but it could very well be mid-summer before I see the replacement just because of shipping. Hopefully we can work something out. This is so close, and thankfully I have a ducktail in the Grey Ghost, my 911 that I'm using as my test mule. So I'm gonna pull this radiator and mount it in my regular go-to car and see how it goes. This radiator came from, I think, PLM, and we had to do so many custom things to this, like putting the ports on the top and then on the side and doing just crazy stuff to make this thing work. But it was never the right configuration for what I needed for my car. It's also quite small. If you look at this compared to the new one has so much more real estate and is a way more robust high-end radiator, much like you'd see in NASCAR. So the plan is to grab the radiator from my demonstration stand here, get it into the Grey Ghost, and let's do some extensive testing. Now technically this closes, but I've made a couple of design tweaks to the next iteration of this radiator. I have lowered this filler neck, and this currently is the problem with this fit. There's an extra inch on this filler neck, and that is preventing a lot of the back and forth. The other thing I'm going to do, which doesn't matter for a ducktail, we're actually going to take this corner off of this and cut it at a 30-degree angle. So this fits really well under stock deck lids. I want to make sure that this thing fits completely stock deck lids from stock to ducktail to turbo tail. All right, official real world fitment here, really for the first time. And it's almost great, but this is why we test, people. So I'm just throwing some water and coolant in now, just to kind of take it for a quick test drive. All right, we're skipping ahead because I lost my battery, but this is where I'm at right now. Like I said, a little bit moved down from where I'd want it to be, but you can see how close this is. It's barely just hanging over. I had to move the whole radiator that way to make it work. But it's working effectively right now. My temperatures are slowly crawling. They're at about 168. I'm going to take it for a little lap around the block and see how we do in terms of overall cooling. Well, that was a very promising 30 minutes I just drove. As soon as it would get to 190, fans kicked on, it dropped right down to a 180, 185. And yeah, really good. Really excited about it. No leaks, it's idling great. All is well right now. It's dyno day for the Subaru EZ30R flat 6 swap. Now this is a world I know nothing about. In fact, hold that thought. So this is a world I know very, very little about. In fact, when Andrew was taking over my computer and in the Haltech NSP software, it looked like we were taking a spaceship to the moon or something. It was crazy how technical it was. I know nothing about this world. So hopefully today we'll get some results for the actual power. I asked my friends over at Outfront Motorsports, like, how much does this thing make? So normally this engine's right around 250 horsepower stock, but I've added headers, got rid of all the emission stuff, and added this Haltech ECU. So the folks at Outfront Motorsports think it makes about 300 horsepower. So the really cool thing is Andrew actually works at Haltech. So he knows all the ins and outs of the software, as well as having his own fabrication and tuning shop here in Corona, California. So if you guys are doing any sort of ECU work or need some fabrication or something cool to work on your car, have a look at Animal Auto. So that crazy beast you heard in the previous clip was a Nissan 240, which has 550 horsepower, which seems like a lot. I'm not sure if that's stock or not.
We look okay, as long as the car doesn't vibrate or jiggle around too much. You could actually tune it raw. Okay, let's look at the idle now. So we want a 770, we're getting an 800 with about 44% output. But I have 30 in there, right? So let's go ahead and clean that up. We'll make that 44. Linearize in. Probably bump these values up. Smoothing that out. Boom.
How much time do you think you spend with a laptop just below your nipples in your life?
I don't know, quite a bit. Not enough to like where I don't want to do more computers after work.
Right.
You know? But I enjoy this. I genuinely do. I'm a problem solver. I like a puzzle. You know what I mean? So, and people think it's like some black magic. It's really not. Like once you kind of get the grasp of things and they'll click for you one day, it kind of all starts from like, this is my third car for the day, and we're only at like 2 o'clock. 140, so it's like once you kind of get in the groove of things, yeah, you kind of move faster. This dyno also really helps. It's a loaded dyno. It's from a New Zealand company called Dyno'd, so I could hold any given RPM point and then map out what game you want. So,
that's cool, man. I'm one of those people that thinks it's a dark art. So right now Andrew is starting the tune around 1500. And what he'll do is continue to go up 500 RPM at a time and continue to give the engine what it wants as it gets to that next level, versus just like sending it and having to fix everything. So that's the beauty of this dyno. This thing is actually spinning the engine at 1500 RPM, and he can tune the Haltech with a remote keyboard. Okay, home now. Huge thanks to Andrew at Animal Auto, who was just a legend. And again, it looked like a fighter pilot, just controlling all that stuff. No idea what he did, but really, really happy with how we turned out. Kind of nailed it, to be honest. Now going into this, my goal for this motor, at least according to Outfront Motorsports, is they said you put a set of headers and an ECU on this, you get 300 horsepower. So I'm like, okay. Now it's important to note how people measure horsepower in the real world. In the real world, when you see that whatever latest, greatest car you have has X amount of horsepower, they are measuring that horsepower at the crank or at the flywheel and not at the wheels. This dyno measures at the wheels. Typically you can account for about 15% drivetrain loss between the crank and what's actually being output on the wheels. Now this was a wheel dynamometer, so all the numbers we got are from the wheels. So before I reveal what we did, let me tell you kind of what we are comparing against. And for this I need my phone. For the Porsche 3.0 engine, which is what I'm comparing my kit to, that has an advertised US spec at 180 horsepower at the crank and 204 horsepower for the Euro spec version, also at the crank. The wheel horsepower is 153 horsepower at the wheels, and the Euro spec is 173 horsepower at the wheels. Now the torque numbers are even more telling. 175 foot-pounds of torque at the crank and 149 foot-pounds at the wheels for the US spec. And then the Euro spec is 188 foot-pounds at the crank and 160 foot-pounds at the wheels. Problem is, this isn't apples to apples. My engine blows those numbers away. Let's actually compare specs to the Porsche 3.6 engine, which I took out of the Grey Ghost, and the numbers even are more telling. Now the 1995 Porsche 3.6 engine has 272 horsepower at the crank, and on the Dyno'd, 225 to 235 wheel horsepower. Torque-wise, listed at 243 foot-pounds of torque at the crank, and 200 to 215 foot-pounds at the wheels. Now then, here are the glorious numbers of the Rennch Subaru EZ30R swap kit. Now the stock EZ30R has either 245 horsepower or 254 horsepower, depending on where it came from, and that translates to 208 wheel horsepower with 177 foot-pounds of torque, and the 254 is 216 wheel horsepower with 183 foot-pounds of torque. Here's the reveal. Your boy here put a little kit together that has 300 horsepower at the crank, 256 horsepower at the wheels. Torque numbers, actually I don't know what the torque is at the crank, but at the wheels it is 262 foot-pounds of torque, annihilating the Porsche 3.0 and even bettering the Porsche 3.6. Now, after we got this tune done, he was like, why don't you take it for a little rip down the road? It is so buttery and smooth and powerful. Third gear in my car is like, mwah, chef's kiss. So I think tomorrow, if I can pull it off, I'd love to get my other prototype Radiator, the newest one in, and maybe take it to a Cars and Coffee or something. If I don't make it this weekend, I'm definitely doing next weekend. Now that I've got the Radiator in, I've actually been driving the car around town, and it's been great. I mean, literally boringly great. Just driving it, cooling is perfect. Nothing's weird with the engine. I turn it on, I pull out of the driveway, I go to where I'm going, I come back, I park it, everything's normal. Some of my friends were like, well, how'd it go? I'm like, it was boring in the most beautiful way. And it's so smooth. There's just a smoothness to the engine that feels really good. It's got tons of torque, and it's really fun to drive so far. All right, guys, now that we are done with the dyno, you'll see I have a big old hole here, and that is because my brand new prototype Radiator just came in. I've cleaned up a few things and buttoned a couple things up, so we are pretty much ready to go. One of the major issues we had during the dyno is that my fans kept cutting out. So I have put a Deutsch connector on the fans, and I've got the new fan sitting over there on the workbench. So this is the new rad on the workbench. It's beautifully shiny. And as I mentioned before, you have options. So you can either do AN fittings or you can do the press-on. The radiator and the kit come with both. I'm going to be using just the standard, hose, but for some of the higher end builds, some of the turbo stuff, we may end up going to AN lines for this. So let me show you kind of what I did. As I've mentioned on this particular EP, which by the way, like for you, this has been whatever, 10, 15 minutes. For me, this has been 5 weeks. So you'll see I've lowered this by a little over an inch. We got this thing as low as we could get it and chamfered this edge so that we have a little bit better clearance for those stock deck lids. So we are ready to go. I'm going to put the correct fittings, all three, in the right spot, and I will see you guys over there in a sec. Quick break. I thought it would be worth showing you guys. I've just redesigned my outriggers for the, who knows, 20th time. And these things are basically designed to give me as much flexibility as I can with where the radiator is placed in the engine compartment. And upon that last one, the one you saw earlier today, I wanted a little bit more forward movement. So I redesigned these and I made it kind of like a, like a race car wing so that there's kind of infinite configurations. But now that I think about it, I'm just going to slot these. So the next iteration of this is going to be just 4 slots here. That way I can slide it back and forth in this area and it'll be perfect. And I might even slot here. I don't know why I didn't do that to begin with. It obviously makes it really, really easy to position things, but worth seeing where this started from. This was the original piece of aluminum that eventually turned into this. So kind of cool to watch the iterative process. I probably have 20 at least prototypes and 3D prints of this. I think I have at least 5 or 6 aluminum versions after a ton of 3D prints of this. And it's just what happens with this. Every time I get an idea or need to solve another problem, it's another redesign. It's another 2 or 3 weeks adding on to my manufacturing conversation at the earlier part of this video. All right, guys, this is what it looks like. Look how lovely that is, how it curves down. I don't want to toot my own horn here, but it's perfect. It is literally perfect. And thankfully, I can put my grill back on and still get to testing this thing. Next thing I have to do here is just tighten down the hoses, 3 hoses, plug the fans in. I will check them before I do anything else. And then I'm ready to start filling with coolant. Okay, I've got it all connected. And right now I just want to double check that my fans work. Disable below 50. Oops. 50. There we go. Fans are fanning. So here we go, guys. Pretty stoked. I mean, it looks so good. It looks fully proper. There's something about this this chamfered edge that really makes it look nice and dip down. This worked out exactly as it was supposed to. I haven't looked at my temp yet. I got to fire the laptop up, but feeling really good. Let's go. So taking it for a little test drive. Feels really good, obviously, but it seems to be cooling really well. Trying to catch a little bit of the sunset for you guys, but it might be a little bit too late. But heading down to the coast to take a little coastal drive here on a Sunday evening, then why not? When you have a vintage Porsche, that's the best thing to do with it. All right, guys, well, that was a crazily cool video. A pair of radiators, a dyno test, and finally a beautiful beach drive. Thank you for being here. As always, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. You guys keep on rocking.